Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again in this YouTube astrological set. I'm going to be talking about the transit north node making a sextile or trine to one's natal Mars. Now, this transit may manifest in one's future destiny, where you're directed toward what you're learning and aspiring to be, being in harmony with your energy, your vitality, your actions at this time. And I'm going to elaborate and expound on that. This is where it can be a very positive time in taking action in one's future, your destiny, where you feel your purpose is, at least at this point in time. Um, it can be a time as well when you have this transit where you're really, you might feel it could be a very auspicious time for being directed toward, some moving towards something where initiative is required. It can be simply at a place, your job where you're showing a worker how to do something. Um, it can be in taking initiative in that respect. It can also be a time what you're learning and aspiring to be. It's something where you can pursue, with really a lot of more motivation and drive in taking action in this without much hesitation or procrastination. If the transit north node is in Aquarius, it could be something connected to astrology or computers or innovation, meteorology, aviation as some examples. It's a time as well if courage is needed to be expressed. This could be the time where you could basically move toward that with little hesitation or procrastination. It's also a time when you have this transit, really, it's having that, you know, whatever you're learning, you may be learning and aspiring to be at this time. It may be done having the right amount of enthusiasm. Some of you may wonder, well, what's the difference between this transit and the conjunction? Well, the conjunction transit and the sextile and trine are comparable, but they're not exactly or precisely the same. The conjunction is more intensifying and integrating. And what happens is when you have the conjunctions are neutral aspect. There could be good and bad qualities in them. The conjunction, I would say, could be more obsessive. And when you have like the conjunction with this transit, it can be a time where you might feel, doing something, you have the enthusiasm for. You might be you feel like so directed toward it where you're just like, you can become oblivious, to everything else. It can become very obsessive, I would say. But when you have like the sextile and trine, it's really having really that right amount, of enthusiasm and the motivation and drive in terms of moving toward your future, whatever it is you're learning and aspiring to be. And that's really what the difference is with, with the conjunction or in sextile and trine. Now, another thing about this energy as well, when this transit does take place, it's a time where you can really, it's about, moving ahead, taking, the actions that are needed at this time. If you've been kind of laying around, procrastinating or hesitating on certain actions that need to be done, say if your natal Mars is in Scorpio, those actions may be connected with insurance or taxes or recycling. It could be doing something with refuse, or it could be, something connected with locksmithing or the occult, which includes astrology. But when you have this transit, it's really a time where those things could come to an end, and you feel like you're more about moving toward those matters and taking action. And it's really, keep in mind, as far as anatomically speaking, okay, Mars is connected, with the head, the skull, the face, and sexual organs. Now, you have this transit going back to, if you've been hesitating or procrastinating, it can be a time if you have any of those issues that I just described that are anatomically related to Mars. This could be the time where you feel more directed toward doing something about it, moving ahead, getting what needs to be done, taken care of, at this point in time. And it's a time as well, if you have any issues with what I just described that is anatomically connected with Mars, it's also a time where I would say you could pursue your future, your destiny, your mission, purpose, and deal with those matters described that are associated with Mars, and being able to balance it and not let those issues necessarily conflict with what you're trying to do, whatever you're learning and aspiring to be. Mars is also connected with physical injuries. If you have your natal Mars in the zodiac sign Cancer, it could be some physical injuries associated with the chest, the breast, the ribs, or the stomach. And it may be a time where you might have to, it's about taking care of those matters and moving forward. So, and it could be so you can move forward in whatever it is that you're trying to do with your life at this point in time. And it's also a time, if you're dealing, say if there's any anger issues, whether it's because you could be in a contentious or acrimonious situation with somebody, or it's frustration due to whatever is going on in your life, whatever may not be going on, if you have been making progress in a certain area in your life, whatever it might be, this is a time where you can, it's easier to move toward dealing with that, and not let any anger issues, if you do have any, be able to conflict with whatever it is you're trying to do. It's at least being able, I'd say, to keep that under control. If there's any issues with temper or anger, this is the time where you're more likely to contain it more so than usual. And if you have the transit North Node, when the North Node is in transit, it can also be about issues that one may have to address and confront. So if there's anything you have to do regarding a confrontation, and you have to meet up with somebody, say this is what's going on, and you need to speak out about something, it could be easier to do at this time, and this is where you have that energy of being more directed, moving toward having to do this at this point in time, more so than you ordinarily would, and that's where it can be positive. If you've been hesitating or procrastinating on confronting somebody about an issue, this is the time where it can be more positive for doing so, and it might even be advantageous toward your future, such as people seeing this, being impressed with your ability to stand up for yourself, and you just don't know where things can go from there. So it's also a time, if you've been, like, say, in a subordinate or subservient role for some time, and you've been yearning for some leadership position, it's like you want to be a manager, your place of business, as an example. It could be that time where it can be, positive for that, for moving toward that at this point in time. There may be more confidence associated with this. You might feel it's really, part of your destiny, and in doing so. And also, it's a time where you could act, more aggressively in whatever it is you're trying to attain, without really, rebuffing somebody, or somebody, being irritated by it. There's ways you can be, aggressive in trying to do what you have to do, such as if you're a door-to-door salesman, you could do things in a way that aren't overly forceful, but you could still get your point across, as an example. And this is a time where it can be positive for doing that at this time. And your future might be lying right now, or I should say, it might be dependent on being a little bit more aggressive than you ordinarily would, but not to the point where it comes across as overly forceful. Now, another way this transit could manifest, it could also be positive, again, for moving toward, which is the North Node, what you have that enthusiasm, which is Mars, for. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Mars is in Sagittarius, it could be enthusiasm for sports or the outdoors, religion, philosophy, printing press operation, even as some examples. It could also be an auspicious time to pursue your purpose, which is the North Node, which is could be associated with leadership, which is Mars. Now, let's say, for example, the natal Mars is in the zodiac sign Cancer. It could be some leadership position, like in real estate, firm or business, or it could be restaurant management, or even owning like a laundry or plumbing business as some examples. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another thing too is that people prominent in your future, which is the North Node, may be in more harmony and agreement with what drives and motivates you, which is Mars. Now, if the natal Mars is in Libra, as an example, those things that drive and motivate you may include art, the law, balanced sports such as tennis or gymnastics. It could be being able to negotiate. It could be arbitration, as some other examples. And also, too, this transit can be propitious for what you're learning and aspiring to be, which is a North Node, and being assisted by the people you may be in a sexual relationship with, or it could be Mars-related people, such as leaders, as some examples. Now, if the transit North Node is in Leo, as an example, it could simply be being learning to be more extroverted, gregarious, a little more attention-seeking, being able to dominate the field that you're in, as some examples, being more generous, magnanimous, and those are some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Learnard saying, stay well.